There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door.
All right, open up the door. Starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates, and prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ, and he heard a sound behind him, and he said, behold, I looked. There was a door standing open in heaven, and I heard a voice, which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here. I want to show you the things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretells would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good day, everybody. Andy White here. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I want to welcome everybody from all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Open Up the Doors. And I am streaming live over on my Facebook Open Up the Doors page. If you'd like to join in the conversation over there, let me know where you are watching from or listening from or both, because it is a video. Facebook, Open Up the Doors, facebook.com/faithfm 91.7 is my Open Up the Doors page. Please like the page if you've never liked it before, and join in the fellowship, the fun, and the frivolity that goes on over there, and all the seriousness. Much more seriousness than frivolity, but nothing like having some fun once in a while as well. But you can also follow me on Truth at AJ White, Truth Social, if you're on that platform, or you can follow me on Parler at AJ White 777. If you are outside of the Faith FM broadcast area here on the east end of Long Island, I would highly recommend and suggest to you that you download the free Faith FM app. Just look up Faith FM in Sag Harbor, and you can listen to great Christian programming 24/7 from wherever you are all around the spherical globe. The app works great. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of great programming here on Faith FM, besides me, of course. Anyway, all right. Just going to wade through my preliminaries here before I get into what I got to get into, and I've got so much I got to get into. I do plan on going to the phones later on in the second hour. I want to hear from you. Write down the phone number now so you're ready to go. 631-725-2069. That's 631-725-2069 if you'd like to be part of the program in the second hour. So as I said, we've got a lot to get to, and I'm going to just get to it right now. Oh, man. I'm going to go through, before I do that, listen, I got a lot on my plate, and I'm thinking that a lot of what I'm going to be getting into is going to really roll into the second hour today. So I really hope you're able to hang out for the entire broadcast. If not, there are obviously other avenues of getting it all. But I want to delve into some serious things here. I'm going to ask some rhetorical questions right up front. Is the U.S. government looking to become a pawn and a puppet of the World Economic Forum? You know, this past week there was the big conference in Davos, Switzerland, of the World Economic Forum, and as I was going through the reporting and the various videos and listening to some of the things that were coming out, I just started writing down my thoughts. Is the U.S. government looking to become a pawn and a puppet of the World Economic Forum? Are the globalist political elites in D.C. selling out the American people? our politicians and our elected officials and government officials, are they throwing our ideals and values under the bus for the sake of what they are now calling the New World System? Yeah, I touched on this last week, by the way. The WEF doesn't want to use the term New World Order anymore because it's become a toxic term. So we'll just change it to the New World System instead, and nobody will notice it. Think anybody will notice we've changed it to the New World System? We don't want to use New World Order anymore. Anyway, regardless of that, it needs to be asked. Are American politicians and government officials being prepped and prepared to condition America to bow to the spirit of Antichrist in the name of saving the planet? And I want to tell you, folks, the short answer to all of those questions is a resounding yes. Sorry to say. You know, there was a whole slew of American politicians and government officials in Davos this past week at the World Economic Forum conference. Why? Why were they there? Former Secretary of State and current U.S. climate envoy John Kerry, he turned heads with a speech last week in which he called, and this is all on video, he called himself and the fellow attendees there, he called them, quote, a select group of people with an almost extraterrestrial calling to come together and plan to save the planet. I played that clip last week in the second hour. But these are the elitists. This is what they think, people like John Kerry think of themselves, that they're the saviors of the planet. But from John Kerry proclaiming that they were among a special group of people claiming to save the planet, to there were Senators Joe Manchin of West Virginia was there, Kirsten Sinema, senator from Arizona, was there, several others as well. There were several other congressional members of Congress there. There were even several state governors in Davos. I mean, Davos, it was becoming apparent to me, it was overrun with American politicos. Yeah, there were, of course, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds from all around the world, from Europe. But all of our government, not all, but many, many, many of our government officials were there. Why? Why were they there? Why would governors go to the World Economic Forum? Better yet, or more, I shouldn't say better yet, but more credulously or incredulously, man. Even FBI Director Christopher Wray was there on a panel discussing combating disinformation. I'll get to that in a moment. It's kind of ironic, actually. But like I said, there were governors there. Governors like Brian Kemp of Georgia, who's a Republican, or ostensibly anyway. There was Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker was there. Governor Whitmer of Michigan was there. Why? Why were they there? Remember, folks, these are some of the same people who have been telling us that this Great Reset stuff is all a conspiracy theory. But as we have said over and over and over again, it's not a conspiracy theory when they're openly telling you what they're planning and doing, and when they're putting themselves on video saying it. So, in my exploration, if you will, because I wanted to report on this WEF conference. I knew last week I was going to really use this week's broadcast to highlight some things and to bring some of these things across, because I haven't really talked about it lately. And since they had the conference, I thought it was a good opportunity to highlight and overview some stuff. But what I'm going to do a little differently is I wanted to focus on how this is bleeding into the American governmental mindset, how the contagion is being spilled into the American politicos and how they're governing our country. And we've already begun to see the effects of the agenda, the 2030 agenda, and the Great Reset agenda, and the Build Back Better agenda. Now they're changing all those terms to the New World System agenda. But what really got me this year was how many of our American leaders went there. And as I was pondering this, I came across several articles, really, but one that really, and I'm going to post these on my Open Up Doors Facebook page later today after the broadcast, because these I can only touch upon these articles in a very brief manner in the time I have here on the radio. But you need to go back and read these articles in depth. I'll post them, like I said, later today on my page. But one article which I thought really summed it up a lot, and this article was in Technocracy News, a tech blog, online tech blog, and it was in itself it was a conglomeration of several other articles. But the title was perfect. The title was perfect. In fact, I'm taking the part of the title of this article, and this is what I'm going to title this broadcast. But the title of this article in Technocracy News was U.S. Politicians Who Pimped America to the WEF/Davos Cult. That's what I want to talk about on this broadcast today. The Davos Cult. Because it's really beginning to show all the signs of being a cult. An antichrist, Babylonian spirit cult. And I don't think I would not have thought of that term, I don't think, on my own. But it grabbed me when I saw it. U.S. politicians who pimped America to the World Economic Forum, because that is what they were doing in so many ways. And I love the way the article begins. The article actually begins with a statement from the editors of Technocracy News. And it says this: Dear American politicians, America and Americans are not for sale. We are not your prostitute that you can pimp to the Davos cult that pushes the Great Reset and the destruction of America. History will record all of you on the same page as the revolutionary traitor Benedict Arnold. That's from the editors of the Technocracy News. Yes, my friends, really. Benedict Arnold so cynically realized centuries ago, of course, that treason may be the most threatening weapon our enemies can aim at the heart of a democracy, especially the one that leads the free world to keep it safe from tyranny. What happens when our own democratic republic, based upon life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and individualism, freedom, what happens when we become a tyrannical state? Let me get back to the article, because those things I just shared weren't in the article. But so I grabbed some definitely poignant quotes here. Quote, U.S. politicians who receive invitations to the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, always seem to say stupid things or stay silent when they could be speaking up for American values. And we have several over there this week that exude what's wrong with America. Congressman from Massachusetts, I believe he's from Massachusetts anyway, Seth Moulton, Joe Manchin, as I mentioned, Brian Kemp, and many others were there as well. But for brevity's sake, I'm going to focus on a couple of examples of why no U.S. politician worth their salt should attend these meetings. Exhibit A, there was a panel discussion, And there was this one woman who's the vice president of values and transparency for the Executive European Commission. Her name is Vera Jourova. Vera Jourova. But she was speaking on this panel last Tuesday, and the name of this panel was The Clear and Present Danger of Disinformation. And she was predicting that the U.S. would soon have hate speech laws just like they do in Europe. You see, this Vera Jourova, if I'm pronouncing her name right or not, she's kind of like, in some ways, she's kind of like the female version of Joseph Goebbels, really. She wants to make sure that the state is only putting out the information that they want put out, framing the narrative that they put out, and calling anything that comes against their narrative, classifying it as either hate speech or disinformation. But there she was sitting next to this Democrat congressman, yes, from Massachusetts, Seth Moulton, and she's predicting that hate speech laws are coming to America, and that they need to regulate what people can and can't say on the internet. Now, of course, we've already been seeing that the last several years, in really growing in exponential ways, beginning in the Trump years when they wanted to censor Trump and his followers, right into COVID. And we just thought it was an aberration, I think, many of us. But folks, this is how our government is in league with the World Economic Forum to bring about their agenda. And here's the thing. Here she is, this Vera Jourova. Here she is in the video. She's sitting next to this congressman from Massachusetts. And as she's saying, America needs to clamp down and criminalize, in so many words, she said, criminalize free speech. She taps him on the arm and laughs as she makes her prediction. And if you watch the video, which I did, you'll see Congressman Moulton just smiles at her and says nothing to rebuke or rebut her un-American prediction. You know, one would think that being an American, Congressman Moulton would have politely rebuked this apparatchik from the European Union and reminded her that we Americans have something here called the First Amendment. But no, he didn't do that. No, he just chuckled with her. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. It doesn't matter if she or anyone else deems our opinions, your opinion or my opinion, extreme, quote unquote. It does not matter how unpopular someone's opinion may or may not be. They are protected by the First Amendment, and stop, period. There's just no way around it. That's just the way it is and always has been in America. It's what makes us unique in the world, but they want to take that away. And there he was, smiling as she's talking about clamping down on Americans' free speech. He was being the good little globalist stooge who was thrilled to get his invitation to rub elbows with the rich and famous in Davos. He just sat there like a bump on the log, smiling, accepting this bitter medicine, this cup of abominations. And I'm saying that on purpose. I'm going somewhere with this. Handed it to him. But let's turn to another interesting video clip I watched. By the way, this article that I'm pulling this stuff from Technocracy News, all these videos are embedded in that article. So when I post it, you'll be able to watch this stuff. But there was West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Look, a guy that sometimes we just think he's a moderate. Sometimes we think he's the most sane, one of the most sane Democrats there. And you would think we come to expect a little bit more from him. But then again, he always turns around and shows his true colors anyway. But I digress. But he also embarrassed himself, really, while speaking on the same topic of freedom of speech in Davos. Manchin, who was a participant on a different panel, brought up the topic of social media platforms. And Manchin, he let it be known that he thinks there is way too much freedom for Americans to say what's on their minds politically. Oh, really, Joe? Really? I really thought you were smarter than that, Joe. He thinks that some of us are just too extreme and need to be silenced. Manchin let it be known that he's no fan, and this is a quote, he's no fan of the open press system we have in America. Can you imagine this? Senator Joe Manchin goes to Davos, Switzerland, and openly says on camera in front of an audience that he's not a big fan of the open press system we have in America? Wow. Perhaps he would prefer the closed press system like they have in North Korea or China. I'm going to quote you. I'm going to quote from Joe Manchin, and you can go hear it for yourself. The problem we have is the open press system and basically all the platforms, Manchin said. The problem we have? No, it's not a problem, Joe. It's only a problem to people who want to control the narrative and control speech and control thought. Now, it was such an outrageous statement, and I do want to be fair. I want to be fair to Uncle Joe Manchin. After he received a whole lot of criticism, rightly so, he did try to walk back and clarify his statements. He was on Fox News with Maria Bartiromo, and he began to clarify what he meant and actually apologize, saying he didn't exactly say what it didn't come out right. Yeah, well, sorry, Joe, it didn't come out right. Yeah, it's too late. You really already spoke your true feelings about your apparent contempt for the U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights. And it's pretty interesting that when you're on Fox News and you understand who the audience is, you're going to backtrack. But when you're on a stage speaking with wealthy global political elites, globalists, you change your language and you come against. See, this is called being two-faced. This is called being duplicitous. But let me further the ball down the field. And I'm going long already in this first block. I knew I was going to have a lot today, but just saying on the same topic here, because we've just barely started, folks. I've just barely scratched the surface. FBI Director Christopher Wray was also in attendance, as I mentioned, and he was bragging. He was actually bragging about how the government, quote unquote, especially the FBI, works in collaboration with big tech to censor Americans. Yeah, that's illegal, and here he is bragging about it. The World Economic Forum cartel meeting, the cult in Davos, to them, this information has been deemed, quote, the most existential problem facing the world. And Christopher Wray stands at their beck and call, apparently, to help rein it in. Let me quote from Christopher Wray. Quote, I think the sophistication of the private sector is improving, and particularly important, the level of collaboration between the private sector and the government. Yeah, that's called fascism. For anybody who's ever studied fascism, when the private sector and the corporations are in bed working together with the government for governmental policies, that's called fascism. And here he is saying it out loud, saying the quiet part out loud. The level of collaboration between the private sector and the government, especially the FBI, has, I think, made significant strides. Pretty much every technology we could talk about today, we see both great opportunity but great dangers in the wrong hands. So here he is, Christopher Wray, at the World Economic Forum, bragging on how the FBI has collaborated with private big tech to suppress speech, free speech. Folks, this is, in my opinion, it's an attack on the Constitution. And these leaders take an oath to uphold the Constitution, not undermine it. But there he was, Christopher Wray, in Davos, bragging about how the FBI, in concert with Vera Johovara of the EU, are cracking down on free speech. Hanging out with a bunch of elites are American politicians who want to take power away from and fundamentally transform America. Why were they there? Why were they there? I'll tell you what, folks. They're getting their marching orders. That's what they're doing. But I'll be back with more in a second or two. Going to take a quick, short break. Got much, much more to talk about, so stick around. Here's Misty Edwards, Dove's Eyes.
I want to sing right to you.
Misty Edwards, Dove's Eyes. Such a pretty, pretty tune. Very relaxing. Which is what we need in the midst of all this cacophony and chaos. We need to take a step back every once in a while and just take a Selah moment. But welcome back. Andy White here. You are on the radio. I hope you're on the radio. I hope you're on the radio listening to me, but I am on the radio. Tearing down strongholds. And you are listening, if you're just tuning in, to Open Up the Doors here, Integrity and Broadcasting, here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3, Napeag and WEGQ 91.7 in Quad. Thanks for hanging out with me on this Thursday morning. I'm going to get back into some of my observations from the World Economic Forum conference that was in Davos, Switzerland this past week. But these Davos elites, my friends, they're radicals. And anybody that shows up in Davos, Switzerland is devious and dangerous. I know they don't see themselves that way, but they are. Anyone who shows up there to be part of this conference is being inculcated with the spirit of Antichrist. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. Because as I said in the first block, when you look at these people and what they're putting out with policies, what they're putting out across the board with all of their global agenda, it's really beginning to take on the characteristics of a cult. Let's just call it the Davos Cult. I know the elites are calling it Club Davos. No, not Club Davos. No, it's the Davos Cult. When you hear what these powerful government officials are saying and realize how they are buying into and being brainwashed, I'm talking about the Americans, the American government officials. When you realize how they are buying into and being brainwashed and groomed by the Davos cult agenda, and then when you begin to connect the dots with what we have been witnessing going on here in our own country, the complete undermining of our nation's laws, traditions, and values, not to mention our economy, it becomes blatantly clear, my friends, that the cup of the spirit of harlotry of Babylon the Great is already beginning to be poured out and drunk till its fullest. Babylon the Great, in Revelation 17 and 18, is yet to rise. It's a literal city. It will rise. It's a literal last days world power. But her delusions will precede her rise. For we see in Revelation 17:4 that she has a cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And I want to tell you, it's already beginning to be poured out and drunk by the nations, as we are told, with whom the kings of the earth commit fornication. Let that sink in. With whom the kings, the rulers of the earth commit fornication with Babylon the Great. And the inhabitants of the earth are made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Revelation 18:3. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. We are seeing this Babylonian harlot spirit already manifesting itself. I rhetorically asked at the top of the broadcast, are American politicians and government officials being prepped and prepared to condition America to bow to the spirit of Antichrist in the name of saving the planet? Came across another blog by Leo Hohmann, and the title of his blog was Pandering to the New World Order. Well, I guess he didn't get the memo that they're calling it the New World System. Hey, Brother Leo, yeah, you gotta get caught up on the times here, Leo. No, he's really good. I'm only kidding. But his title was Pandering to the New World Order. American politicians sell us out to the international criminal syndicate with blood on its hands. With blood on its hands. Another great article that I'll post that just has so much symbolism and the picture of what's going on in the spiritual realm. You see, folks, it's not just about politics. It's not just about the economy. It's not just about climate change. It's about the Babylonian harlot spirit that's going to use all of these multi-crises, which I'll get to in a moment, to bring about their agenda. When the mother of harlots, Mystery Babylon the Great, finally and fully arises and reigns over the kings of the earth, albeit only for a short season, it will be indeed filled with the blood of the saints. I don't know if that was in Leo Holman's mind when he wrote that article, American Politicians Sell Us Out to the International Criminal Syndicate with blood on its hands, but it does have blood on its hands in many ways that I won't even digress into right now. But Revelation 17:6 says, I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. You know, folks, as this thing takes on more formation, as this thing becomes more enforced, you realize the only people on the planet that are going to be resisting the Babylonian spirit of harlotry, this mystery Babylon economic system, the only people that are going to be resisting it are the saints, are the church, because we're prepared for it, because we're ready for it, because we're discerning of what's going on. Therefore, they will persecute us like no persecution the church has ever seen, even since the early days. There's a persecution coming from the Babylonian spirit in the days ahead like you have never seen. It's already begun. Right now, it's soft persecution. It's the throwing of preachers who preach from the Bible on the street into jail, coming and they go back to Vera, whatever her name was over there, the European person in charge of disinformation and hate speech. You know, preachers, people who are handing out tracts and reading Bible verses and preaching on the streets are being thrown in jail in Europe, being thrown in jail for hate speech just by reading verses out of the Bible. This is how it begins. And the World Economic Forum is nothing other than a chaotic cacophony of confusion, to put it mildly. Professing themselves to be wise, they become fools. Now, you might be wondering, Brother Andy, what does any of this have to do with me? Why should I care about a bunch of elites who get together in Switzerland? How does it affect my life? Well, it does, my friends. I'm trying to shake you and wake you up to see how it does affect your lives. For one thing, remember, fundamentally, it's called the UN Agenda 2030. The World Economic Forum, Great Reset, Build Back Better is all part of the UN's Agenda 2030. And they want to see a lot of these global transformative policies fully implemented within the next 7 years. Agenda 2030. This is 2023, folks. And if they are successful, it will impact and infect your life whether you care about it or not. And one of their objectives that came out of this year's conference is to begin to accelerate and enforce the agenda. According to the World Economic Forum goals for 2023, it's to push for more direct action by the by governments, to take direct action and to do it quickly. Klaus Schwab was quoted as saying, in the new world, it's not the big fish. It's not the big fish which eats the small fish. It's the fast fish which eats the slow fish. In other words, we're going to move quickly. The new goal will be to quickly move and enforce the agenda in the principles of the New World System. policies and principles, do you think that they're not going to affect you? The banning of gas-powered cars, it's already happening here in America. Now we're hearing about the banning of gas stoves. Yes, we laugh at that, but this is what they want to do. And they'll do it incrementally. The banning of so-called fossil fuels, oil and gas. It changes the way we structure our lives, the way we pay our bills. It's the cause for inflation. The building of smart cities where they can limit and control your mobility. They're already planning these things out. They have already tested CBDC, a central bank digital currency. It's already been tested here in America a month or two ago. They're laying down all the groundwork. You think that these politicians in D.C. that are coming up with these things are coming up on these things on their own? They're being groomed and conditioned by the global elites out of the Davos Cult. And slowly but surely, you and I will be forced, my friends, into their corporatist, fascist fiefdom. We're on the road to serfdom. We're on the road to serfdom, my friends, if they have their way. You'll own nothing and be happy, whether you like it or not. And rest assured, they will and are bringing about the crises and circumstances that will nudge and push society in the direction they want it to go. I shared with you about a month ago really shared from what was essentially an obscure article a month ago in the Financial Times, what these elites are dubbing as a polycrisis. Well, lo and behold, the term polycrisis was strewn around this year's World Economic Forum event all over the place this past week. It was the buzzword of the week. Welcome to the year of the polycrisis. Welcome to the world of the polycrisis. I watched one video this week from the conference, and there was an interviewer who asked one of the speakers at the conference, and this was his question. What is a polycrisis, and how and when could it happen? When could it happen? Her answer, it's happening now. We have an energy crisis, a food crisis, a trust crisis, a misinformation, a climate crisis. And all of these various things are happening at the same time. It's this set of concurrent, cascading risks that's beginning and happening at the same time. That's what's happening right now today. And she says this, and there will be more to come in the next 2 years. Was that her prognosis? Was that her prediction? Klaus Schwab is quoted as saying, the theme of our meeting is cooperation in a fragmented world, in what the World Economic Forum calls the year of the polycrisis. Schwab declared that economic, environmental, social, and geopolitical crises are converging and conflating, creating an extremely uncertain future. And we're all stuck in this crisis mindset, he warned. But he reassured the attendees that the annual meeting at Davos shall try to make sure that leaders do not remain trapped in a crisis mindset. But here's the key: develop a longer-term, constructive perspective to shape and quote a more sensible, inclusive, and more resilient way forward. And folks, let me tell you something. It's so ironic that these people are sitting here and they're talking about the inflation, they're talking about the economy, they're talking about the energy issues, they're talking about the mistrust of government and disinformation and but all of that has come from the policies that stemmed from global governments and the World Economic Forum. They are the ones that shut down the global economy and said we need to have this wonderful great reset. They are the ones, the central banks around the world, that printed trillions of dollars in fiat money. They're the ones that moved the economy and basic standards of living away from the proven energy sources of the past because of They did it all because of the push. The governments did it because from the push, from the marching orders, from the World Economic Forum. They've caused these crises, my friends, all of them. And yes, it's purposely planned out and it's purposely being done. And they themselves have written books about it. So here we go. in order to confront the polycrisis of which they created in the first place, this is how it works. They create the problem, then they present their plans to ostensibly fix the problem, then they build back better within the parameters of their own solutions. It's called this is the quintessential Hegelian dialectic. You know, you present the proposition or a thesis, you present the antithesis, and you move everything up to a higher level of synthesis to move the agenda. Create the problem, create the solution of the problem to move the narrative and the agenda where you want it to go. There's so much here. They really get into censorship. They got into censorship. Let me check my time here. Let me look at the time here. Yeah, I only got a few more minutes left in this first hour. Like I said, I've got a lot here, and I don't want to really rush through it. So you know what, folks? I'm gonna take a break right here, and I'll pick up this on the other side of the break. So stick around, because I really don't want to shave too much off of this.
I'm not a man.
So stick around. I'll have much more to come.
I cannot lie.
Just come up for air for a moment. Praise God.
I know the plans for your life.
Fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM. WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in FE. WEGQ 91.7 in Quad. Praise God. Praise God. Just moving right along here on Open Up the Doors. Hey, listen, just let me give you some program notes. The first hour of this broadcast re-airs today, Thursday at 3 p.m. If you'd like to tune in again, if you missed any portion of it, you can tune in again today at 3 p.m. or Saturdays at 1 o'clock as well. We re-aired this first hour. If you can't get back on the radio, then what you can do is go on over to my Open Up the Doors YouTube channel or my Rumble channel. You can watch the video there. We upload these videos both to YouTube and Rumble. You could never subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please go, look it up, Andy White, Open Up the Doors. Over there at YouTube, hit the little subscription button and the little notification button, and you will be notified when these videos are uploaded to those channels. Find me on Rumble at AJ White 777. That's AJ White 777 on Rumble. I do plan on going to the phones in the second hour. If you would like to be part of the broadcast, and I want to encourage you to do so, the number is 631-725-2069. That's 631-725-2069 to give us a call. I want to hear what your thoughts are, any questions you might have on really anything, today's topic. And I'm planning on also in the second hour, I'm planning on touching on some of the updates that are going on with the Russian-Ukraine war, and we're going to be sending tanks over to Ukraine with Britain and with Germany, and Russia's got a warship sitting off the east coast of the United States, and the media is downplaying a lot of this, but I want to share with you, if I get to it, because there's more here on the World Economic Forum I want to talk about. But if I get to it, there's a lot going on there that you need to be aware of. But getting back to some of my observations regarding the Davos Cult over there in Switzerland, the World Economic Forum, I actually only noticed this the other day. I never saw this before. But the World Economic Forum has as its tagline, quote, committed to improving the state of the world. Well, actually, I would like to, in the spirit of progressivism, which likes to constantly redefine terms and definitions, I would like to rephrase the tagline from committed to improving the state of the world to committed to destroying the state of the world. I mean, that's really what they're doing. Of course, they're not admitting that. Of course, they're not saying that, but that's what they are. They want to destroy the current state of liberty and freedom around the planet. I was really thinking, as a humorous aside, I was really thinking of titling this broadcast "The Catastrophic Confusion of the Cacophony of the Curmudgeons at the World Economic Forum." But I didn't want to give my video producer a migraine trying to squeeze all those words on the thumbnail graphic. I just love the way that sounds. The catastrophic confusion of the cacophony of the curmudgeons at the World Economic Forum. But if I submitted that as a title, she would just tell me, no, that's not the title, Andrew. It's too long. I can't fit it. I know. I was just kidding. But anyway, a little bit of lightheartedness here. I do want to get back to the serious aspects of this, because what is especially galling to me as an American is that our so-called leaders are selling us out to the UN and the World Economic Forum. They are surrendering our national sovereignty to this cabal of devils if they get their way. That's why we've got to vote in people that will resist this agenda. Another stated goal of this year's conference is for the ever-changing of the narrative. Like I said, they want to get rid of some of the terms that they've used in the past. You know that whole thing about you'll own nothing and be happy? They've taken that down from their website. The Build Back Better motto, the New World Order. They realize that those terms have become toxic. So now they want to change their narrative. But when they say they want to change the narrative, that's code for censorship. That's just code for censorship. In order to fight against misinformation, we're going to call the New World Order system and crack down on misinformation and hate speech. New York Times columnist said that disinformation is the most existential challenge we're grappling with as a society. Translation, free speech and free exchange of ideas and opinions are a clear threat to our globalist agenda. But what they're talking about is controlling the technology, controlling the narrative, controlling the agenda through enforcement, through useful idiots like Vera Jehovah, the Vice President of Values and Transparency for the Executive European Commission, and Christopher Wray of the FBI. This past week at the WEF, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres told his audience, 1, there should be legal accountability for social media platforms that promote false information. Well, who defines that as false information? They do. And 2, that politicians, listen to this. Again, there was no pushback from the Americans. Listen to what he said. The Secretary General of the UN, politicians should force unpopular policies upon their populations for their own good. And our leaders just sat there and drank it in. Folks, I hope that I hope this is firing you up. I hope this is waking you up. I'm out of time for this first hour, and I'm going to carry this into the second hour, but I do want to take your phone calls. 631-725-2069. Okay, because there's a lot more to talk about. But my folks, what we're seeing here is the beginning of a Babylonian Davos cult in the making. I just want to tie up a few loose ends, and there's so much here. There really is so much. Folks, I'm telling you, I'm just barely scratching the surface of this. But my intention here is to obviously inform you and let you know what's going on, because you won't hear about this stuff obviously too much in most of the American media. Although I have to say this, what I have noticed this year, whereas the World Economic Forum in Davos really, I don't think was really much ever covered anywhere, I am seeing it being covered more and more and more and more. Mostly on Fox News. Not that I really tune into CNN or MSNBC all that much. I can't stomach them. But I seriously doubt anything is being covered over there. Maybe there is. Maybe somebody can call and tell me, yeah, they're showing it. Although I don't know. But I do know it's on Newsmax. Oh, speaking of Newsmax. Okay, we've been talking about censorship. We've been talking about how the cup of the wine of the wrath of the mother of harlots, the Babylonian spirit, is creeping into our American political psyche, so to speak. Well, for those of you who watch Newsmax, you probably know of this, but those of you who may not be watching it, and it's one of my regular news broadcasts to go to, is that Newsmax, as of midnight the other night, was kicked off of Dish. I believe it was Dish Satellite, which is owned by AT&T. AT&T took Fox, not Fox, I'm sorry, they're probably going to go with the Fox next, but they took Newsmax down. Newsmax is the fourth most watched news broadcast on any cable network. And I don't want to go into all of the details there, but the bottom line is this. It wasn't an economic decision, because there are 22 liberal stations on AT&T and Dish Network, and they pay every one of those liberal broadcast stations. They pay a fee. When MSNBC, when CNN, when any of these cable news networks, they get paid a certain licensing fee to the cable stations, because it's kind of like a royalty. The cable stations know that they're going to pull X amount of viewers in, so there's this quid pro, so to speak, exchange. Newsmax was charging less than anybody, practically nothing. So it wasn't an economic decision for AT&T to take down Newsmax. The bottom line is this. Someone in the government, some Congress people, wrote to AT&T saying that they wanted Newsmax off the air. This is what I'm trying to show you, folks. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. This isn't just some bunch of global elites getting together for a party over there in Davos. Yeah, it is that. But they are making policies for the rest of the world, for a global governance, which is going to affect you and me, whether you're aware of it or not, like I said in the first hour, or whether you care about it or not. And as Christians, we should be caring about it. We really should. We need to be informed so that we can prepare ourselves for these things in these last days, which is a big reason to kind of pull back the veil of my thinking. This is why I bring in scriptures like Revelation 17 and 18, to show you, to connect the dots between what's going on in the spiritual world and what's going on in the physical world, because they are not disconnected. They are very, very much connected. And we need, as Christians, to be both informed and prepared. And we can't prepare if we're not informed. We can't be ready if we're not well informed. So I'm trying to give you the ammunition. I'm only giving you a little bit. I got stacks and stacks of stuff I know I can't get to. I'm going to post a lot of this stuff later in the day, like I said, to let you read it for yourselves. But this is where we're getting. And I want to say this as an aside. I love the way the Lord always, really, 99.9% of the time, the Lord confirms to me what I'm to share on any particular given week in a broadcast. I'm always struggling about where to bring the direction, where to bring the broadcast. And as I was putting this together yesterday, there's always a little bit of a check in the back of my head, like, should I go with this tomorrow? Should I go with this tomorrow? I do want to stay current, so I don't like putting things off for too long. But as I'm putting my notes together for my broadcast, as I'm doing it, this notification drops down right in front of me on my iPad from a Gatestone Institute article that they just posted. And it said this: censorship, mass surveillance, and bugs. World Economic Forum versus the free world. Now, this drops right in front of me as I'm preparing this, wondering, like, should I go with this? And I'm like, okay, God, seems to me like I should go with this. You give me, it's like, drop me a line. Yesterday, Gatestone Institute, censorship, mass surveillance, and bugs. World Economic Forum versus the free world. This is what I'm talking about. They may fly on private jets, but at the end of the day, the World Economic Forum cabal is just the greatest collections of thugs and organized crime have ever managed to put together in the same room. They're orchestrating the most effective schemes ever devised to force formerly free people to do exactly what they say. Out of the Gatestone article, there was this little blurb, which I never knew. Here was something that was definitely new to me. Sitting right next to Green champion Al Gore, and he went on a rant. He went on he went on a lunatic rant. There's videos of that going on as well. But sitting right next to Al Gore was Colombian President Petro Urrego. Now, I have to laugh somewhat. No way am I trying to make fun of somebody's name. But can you imagine a guy at the World Economic Forum where they're trying to get rid of fossil fuels and his first name is Petro? I mean, I just found that, kind of, I don't know, funny. Anyway, Colombian President Petro Urrego, sitting right next to Al Gore, proclaimed that humanity, listen to this, must, quote unquote, overcome capitalism. I mean, the irony of this is just unbelievable. Al Gore has become a multi-millionaire. Maybe he's even a billionaire by now. I don't know. Because he's been living off of his climate change hoax, over his climate change nonsense for decades. He's been living off of it, making millions on his books, making hundreds of thousands, millions on his speaking engagements. And here you have, I mean, these people are so full of cognitive dissonance, it's mind-boggling. Here you have a guy named Petro sitting next to Al Gore saying that we need to get rid of capitalism. I mean, what? What planet? What planet am I on? Scotty, beam me up. Beam me up, Scotty. We need to overcome capitalism if our planet is to survive. Now, here's what I didn't know. Given that Gore, who is a member of the World Economic Forum Board of Trustees, hey, did any of you know that? Because I didn't. Al Gore is on the Board of Trustees for the World Economic Forum. I mean, I never really thought about who was on the Board of Trustees. To me, it's just a cabal of secretive people run by Klaus Schwab. But yeah, Al Gore's on. Al Gore, man, that struck me. Like, wow. Anyway, here's the thing. As Colombian President Petro Urrego is there talking about how we need to get rid of capitalism, Al Gore didn't seem to disagree. He didn't say a word. He just smiled away. I mean, what? Don't you, get it at all? Anyway, I just found that to be somewhat interesting. None of the World Economic's expansive programs. I'm reading this out of the Gatestone Institute article from yesterday. I just grabbed a couple of quotes here, a couple of paragraphs from here that I thought were interesting. None of the World Economic Forum's expansive programs for remaking the world according to its members' interests sound like anything free Westerners could ever voluntarily embrace. That's why Gutierrez was saying, force it, whether your people like it or not. Surely that is why so many of the World Economic Forum speakers urged the forceful adoption, there's that word again, the forceful adoption of these policies regardless of public support. So it doesn't care what you vote for. It doesn't care. They don't care what you think or what you vote for. Maybe that's why we're seeing how these American elections are going the way they're going. And even after people get voted in, they just do what they want to do. They don't care. They don't care about what you think. They don't care about, they want your vote, but they don't care what you think. Perhaps also the article says this is why the Chinese Communist Party recently applauded this year's Davos spirit, quote unquote. The Chinese delegation, by the way, there was a very large Chinese delegation at the World Economic Forum. And as I've talked about very often, you are going to find as we go on all of these overlapping yet conflicting agendas between these nations. China doesn't want to be part of the World Economic Forum's agenda per se. They want to create their own New World system, their multipolar system, along with Iran and Russia, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But all of these like-minded people get together, and even though they're like-minded about global domination, they all have their own version of that global domination. And I think the real dumb ones on the street are the Westerners, who are all gleeful that China's on board, who they think China's on board with them, but all China wants to do is sell them the technology and the AI and the technology for the surveillance state. And these Westerners are really applauding and on board with what the Chinese Communist Party is doing in China. Let me read from the article. The Chinese Communist Party recently applauded this year's Davos spirit because communists know communism when they see it. And in Klaus Schwab's globalist oligarchy of elites, China likes what it sees. To coincide with this gathering, the World Economic Forum published a report citing misinformation and disinformation among the most significant global risks, as I shared in the first hour. WEF members publicly predict that hate speech laws will soon come to the United States in direct violation of the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment protections for freedom of speech, as I shared in the first hour. But I'm sharing some things out of what came. I had already prepared all that, and then this is what I'm seeing pop out in front of me, even as I'm making my notes yesterday. Calls are growing. Here's an important thing. Calls are growing from the WEF for the tracking and enforcing of individual carbon limits. Oh, you want to know how this is going to affect you? If they get their way, they're going to say, you have a carbon limit for the month. If you still want to drive your gas car, your gas car, you're only going to be allowed to say drive maybe 50 Maybe you'll be allowed 50 miles for the whole month. Maybe you'll only be allowed 25 miles. You're only allowed you've got a carbon limit, and we're going to track it, and we're going to enforce it. And now they're making, the new cars are making so that they can keep monitoring this when you buy some of these newer cars. These same authoritarians push digital vaccine passports, contract tracing, mandatory use of vaccines, and following the World Economic Forum's determination that Westerners should transition to a diet of bugs. Now, the leftist media is laughing at that. They're saying it's not true, but it's absolutely true, because the European Union just the other day authorized the general consumption of house crickets. Yes, you heard me right, folks. When you go to Europe, be careful what you're eating. They are using house crickets. They're pulverizing them and putting them in flour to, because they want to get rid of, farming. And, flour is a big part of, we make flour. How do they make flour? Out of wheat, I believe it is. We make flour for cooking bread and all kinds of baked goods, and we need flour for cooking. Well, they don't want to use up the land anymore to grow the materials that you need for making flour. So we'll just figure out a way to, pulverize crickets. I'm not making this up. Trust me, I'm not making this up. So censorship, mass surveillance, and bugs. That was the name of the article here in Gatestone Institute. Welcome to the future, my friends. Welcome to the future, should the World Economic Forum get its way. Yep, we are out of time, folks. Praise God. I'll be back next week. In the meantime, be strong, be brave, stand firm in the faith. Let all that you do be done in love.